Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Guide and Grow live stream event for the month. The topic today is Montessori pregnancy, birth, and postpartum. Now, first, I just wanted to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land in which I am from, the Darug people, and I wanted to pay my respects to elders past, present, and future as they hold the traditions, culture and the memories of the Aboriginal and the Torres Strait Islander people here in the nation of Australia. So wherever you're joining us from, I know we have people joining us from USA, it could be the Middle East, Asia, wherever you're from, let us know in the comments, give us a wave. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everywhere in the world. That's what I love about doing these live streams, whether you're tuning in on our YouTube channel, Guide and Grow TV, whether you're joining us in our amazing Facebook community. To all our members out there, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to join us. If you're on Facebook or in our event today, we've got a very, very special guest, a legend in this field of Montessori and pregnancy and birth. So at the end of every month, we invite an expert guest to discuss and work through some really important topics about raising our future generations. So this is a really, of course, it's the first part of the journey, the pregnancy, the birth, and postpartum. What an amazing, time in both the child and a mother's or a caregiver's and parents and grandparents' lives. And that's what we're going to speak about here today. We've opened up this event to everybody on our platform. So these are generally closed events that happen in our Guide and Grow Village. So we've opened a subscription base where you get to come to live events and have coaching and all development month by month guides. We'll pop the link in the comments, but we've invited you all here today to join us for this amazing event with Pamela Green. So I'm going to just bring her onto the screen while I read her bio. Hi, Pam.
Hi.
Oh, we've got people here from Australia, from the United States. Christine, whereabouts in the United States are you listening in from? And we've got Cassie here from Brisbane, Queensland. Nice to see some locals and obviously some locals for Pam as well. I wanted to read out her bio quickly. So Pamela is the owner of Ananda Montessori. It's a play group. And she's been teaching and administrating in Montessori as a credentialed early childhood elementary 1 and 2 parent infant facilitator, and she is a positive discipline parent educator for over 30 years. So since 1990, she's served as a birth doula, midwife assistant, a childbirth educator. Pam is a consultant and mentor to teachers, staff, schools, and caregivers worldwide. And I know that she's contributed some amazing content to our Guide and Grow Village as well, which we are forever grateful for. I mean, the work, Pamela, that you've done is really lifelong work, and we are so honored to have you to share that information with us today. Tell us, a little bit about yourself and what really made you go into this this specialty.
Well, thank you so much for having me. Thanks. And it's so great to be with you, Sylvia, and with everybody. I'm sure this has happened with you in your life, but there was a time for me around in the early 80s when actually Montessori and birth came together as an introduction for me. And I first entered into a Montessori environment in 1981. And shortly after that, a friend of mine was having a home birth. And I was able to come into that community of midwives. And actually, the person that I attend births right now with is the first midwife that I met at that time. So over 40 years ago.
Amazing.
And I remember when I used to go to prenatals with my friend, and I remember so strongly just wanting to know more about it, wanting to be hands-on with it. And so learning how to feel the baby and things like that, and just having this sense in myself that this was an answer to something I've been looking for. And the same as when I first went into the House of the Child in 1981, coming there and feeling this is the place that I've been looking for. So it was the same answering in myself.
Yeah.
Um, and so I tend to follow that guidance more than does this make sense, those kinds of things. And I had just took steps along the way and became a childbirth educator. And then I was the first, there weren't even the name of doula, which is a Greek word meaning woman servant, hadn't even been said in my area when I first started. And I was the first doula in the hospitals for about 12 years here. But all the time I was also attending home births, which another thing that's the same with it is we know as Montessorians that our training is a deep work, but the training really begins when we're with another experienced person and have that mentorship. And when you're attending births at home, you have an experienced midwife who you are working with and learning with in a very concrete way. So those things happened around the same time and have continued. I've continued on that path since then.
Yeah, that's incredible. And I think a really key thing that you mentioned there about like really listening to that instinct of yours and like, this is where I need to be and this is what I should be doing. I think we've all had that light bulb moment, when I read up first about what Montessori was, and I just thought, this is it, this is the journey, this is the path. And I think it's very relative to caregivers in their journey as well, like making sure that they're always kind of in tune and listening to what their gut instinct or what that feeling is telling them. And I know we're going to deep dive into that a little bit today about being the prepared adult and that spirituality as well. For everyone listening out there as well, if you have any questions for Pamela or myself, feel free at any time to just pop them in the comments. We'll put them up on the screen and you guys can ask any question that's relative to the conversation that we're having today. This is a once in a very long time opportunity to have, all this expertise here in this field. So please feel free to drop your questions or comments in the chat. And also, if you are watching the replay, just hashtag replay and let us know where you're listening in from. So I guess the first kind of question that we had was, what would you say was the three most important things for a new parent or caregiver to kind of keep in mind during that birthing process?
During the birthing process, well, to stay out of your mind.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah. So practically, what does that look like?
Yeah. Uh, I I haven't had anything. I mean, there are other things. There are those transformative moments in our lives that are unique to us, but labor and birth will bring us into the present moment as nothing else. I mean, the dying process is a similar thing in many ways to me, but we're in the present moment no matter what is happening here. Here we are.
Yeah.
Whatever it is. So it's also a time where if women are given freedom, if there's freedom of movement, freedom of expression of her process, and which is also the baby's process, they're collaborating, then that journey is theirs, and it will evolve moment by moment in the ways that she's needing. So that's what I meant about being out of your mind. Sometimes you're really out of your mind, but you're also like in a different, an otherworldly experience that is also very, very grounded at the same time. And so I would say to even prior to the labor and birth, to be thinking about what supports you or a woman who is going to be birthing, what is supportive to come into yourself in ways that are more present centered, and to work with the, there's many things that come up in labor that can even be, as we see with working with children, can be even from our own history. So in childbirth education, I work with those aspects of sort of the generational aspects of our own family history, which can come through in labor and birth too. And so the more that we can prepare in those ways prior to the birth and the labor, to kind of clear things out so that we can have the space and the freedom. And I'm saying more than three things, but the last one would be that giving great, it's a prepared environment wherever we birth, and to bring attention and intention to that in ways of where I want to birth, where and who I want to have with me. So those are important. So
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to make some comments on, the work that goes on before, as you were mentioning about,
mhm.
the things that we carry from our parents and parenting, and that generation that comes before us. So basically going in with that, so doing the work so that we can clear all of that, so that we're ready, as a prepared adult for that next journey. And you make space, which is what you were saying about, really making space and room for this new part of the journey and the family, to start and continue. Because I think if you're carrying a lot of that with you, not only does it put this stress and, thoughts and all that onto yourself and the child and the family, but it kind of won't give you that sense of, peace and being in that moment. So I think that's a really key point, and it is a little bit, it is deep. These conversations that we're having are quite, they're not on a surface level of, oh, make sure you've got, your midwife and the bed and,
Mhm.
this, all that ready for birth. But this internal work that we're talking about, it actually has such a huge, significant effect on, not only the adults in the space, but the families, the children. And this is what the work is really, no matter where we look at parenting and caregiving and on this
Mhm.
journey, with your child. So the intention behind what you do, staying present in that moment, I thought that was fantastic, because when you allow all your other emotions to take over and then you start making these scenarios in your head, you get carried away with that and you're moving away from what's actually happening. So you need to be in tune and listening to what your body's telling you, what the baby's telling you, and trying to understand that communication and what's happening for you, and just to be with it rather than trying to pull yourself away from what's happening. So thanks for sharing that. I thought that was so insightful. So how would you describe the journey for the child from pregnancy to birth? What does that look like or feel like in your experience for a child?
Mhm. Well, we have the universal link, all of us, that is was our first prepared environment. And the child is supported and cared for all that is needed if the experience is a healthy one, then all that is needed is there for the unborn child who is living a full life. And sometimes we forget that, like the baby is someone's pregnant, and then the baby is born, and then there is aliveness in this new being, and there's been aliveness and a life lived for many, many months. And so I really try to contemplate that, and Maria Montessori wrote quite a bit about that, the experience of the child in utero, and remembering I call them baby memories, but we might also call them points of reference or reference points from when we were inside our mother. We were living in a very sensory experience. So smell and taste and sound, vibration of her heartbeat and her breath and her movement, and not just her, but the co-parent and the siblings. I mean, everyone in the culture.
Yeah.
That the baby is taking in those impressions. And we don't have to wait for birth to fully connect and communicate with our child. So there's that, again, that relationship happening. But I always think of that the mother and the baby are together, and yet they're also living separate lives too. So that's during the pregnancy. And then at birth, one thing that I reflect on is the ways that we want to receive a child who's coming. If my hands are the first hands to touch the baby, or the mother's hands, or anyone else's hands that are there, that how are our hands in touching this person? Because those are that's the first lessons really of what this world is. And the baby is taking that all in through birth, labor. There's such relationship between the mother and the child with the mother baby hormones that the more that she can be, to me it's very similar to the needs of the unborn child, of dim light and feeling the safety and the trust and quiet, all of those things. Mothers, those are needs in mothers during labor and birth. And if that is happening, then the baby is coming, and it can be very quiet, and it can be very, maybe no lights but the moon shining, or it can be a very bright lighted room with a lot of noise, and those experiences. So, but the baby memories, as the baby's born, all that we remember from the inside, if we can have our child with us, so that he or she can experience those fully, then that is a bridge from the unborn time to being earthside, that bridging. And that's what I found to be supportive for infants and for mothers. And then sometimes there are different outcomes, but you still, if you can keep in your focus having the baby with the mother as soon as possible, and that the baby remembers that, then that begins the next journey.
Yeah, to the fourth trimester, what we refer
Right.
to, right? And we'll dive into a little bit about that in a moment. I wanted to actually reflect on the point that you mentioned about when the baby is, is inside the womb, how much they are taking in. Because I think sometimes a lot of, during the pregnancy, like you said, there's two lives that are being lived, that of the mother or the birthing parent, and then that of the baby inside the womb. But what we don't realize is how much they actually are connected, and what it's like to be, to be talking to be, feeding into that, to nourishing, to having those connections. And really, it's all part of the experience, that the spirit of the baby is, is there from such an early on stages within the pregnancy. So, they are a being, they are experiencing the world. And so often we think about it as, like you said, when the birth happens, that's when the baby's born. But actually, it happens way before that. So to keep that in mind is a really great point. If parents are taking that away from this, and kind of having a different perspective, or shifting that understanding, to know that this journey for a baby starts well within the womb, and that's the time where you can really start having those, deeper understandings and connections with your child. And then the transition is what happens in the birth. They're just transitioning from one state of being into, the into the world, the earth as we see it, so the physical world. And so let's talk about a bit about the fourth trimester. So why do they reference it, for people who don't know, as the fourth trimester, and what does that actually mean, and what's going on for the child once they're born in those first few months?
Well, it's a very universal time, given different names. In sometimes midwives call that the baby moon time, the first 40 days, or the first 6 to 8 weeks.
Yeah.
So there are many things happening physically and hormonally in the mother and the baby. There are they are again two different people, and yet they're one still. They're needing to be one, and I feel that is in our culture anyway, not remembered so much, or it's not supported. And it wouldn't be true all around the world that we honor that time almost exactly to that time if it wasn't something that was sacred. And it's it's the readying of the mother to be a mother, no matter how many times she's birthed. It is the adapting of the child to be a son or a daughter. There's attachment that is happening, and all of that process is working towards the time that the baby and the mother begin to have a little more autonomy. But it's a process. And physically, there's, with birth, no matter how the birth is, there's time for recovery and for healing. That takes quite a bit of time, and that isn't, again, supported very much or acknowledged. And that's why there's, in our culture anyway, so much postpartum depression, because of the lack of understanding of what's happening during that time, and how the baby and the mother really have to be together if they can, to help each other. The baby helps the mother to heal, and the mother helps the baby to heal and to come into this life. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in our culture, so my heritage is Armenian, and I know in our culture, the mother and the child, like they have to stay home for the first 40 days. There has to be, the support and the care from other women in the family who look after, who bring over all the, the nourishing foods, and it is a really sacred time. But I feel like now as we move into such a fast-paced life that people are forgetting about those traditions or cultures that we kind of had in the past, because things are moving much faster. And I think what you said about the increase in postpartum depression, because there hasn't been that time to actually, for both the baby and the parent, to transition, which is absolutely key in this whole journey, and to also have the right support system. I think that's such a key point in this whole pregnancy and birthing journey. The postpartum, it kind of gets lost, and it's like, okay, well, the baby's like, if you're in hospital, if you're not having a home birth, which is the majority, if we look at the statistics, we know statistically that majority of births do happen in hospitals rather than home birthing. It's like, okay, the baby's latched on now, or is feeding, okay, off you go, you're on your own. And this, this network, this community, this support is completely lost. And I know that's one of the reasons why we created the village that we have, to give parents or caregivers this support system from, pregnancy right the way through. Because and we've spoken about postpartum depression, and we've got a beautiful story of a mother who shared that with us as well. But I mean, what would you say, what advice would you give for people who are looking for that postpartum care? Like, what do you think is really important for that 40 days or the 6 to 8 weeks? If you could give a few tips to your caregivers, what is something that they should be really conscious of during that time?
Well, I would say that it starts in pregnancy. The bringing some reflection and some thought around what care is available for myself after birth. And a lot of times especially if someone doesn't have family around, it's a grassroots effort of creating community and having, like you're talking about, having that available. But if we can, in pregnancy, create through our family or our friends a way that we can be supported, and then hand that over to them around our own, what is important to us. So I would say one of the most important things is to have meals brought, to have food, have good healthy food brought, and that your focus and your partner's focus, there's the nest, you're in the nest, and food should be brought to the nest. And depending on what people are comfortable with, maybe light housekeeping can be done, or grocery shopping can be done, or laundry, or even someone just coming to be there so that you can go take a shower. I mean, sounds like such a little thing. It's not a little thing at that time.
Yeah.
But that can be worked on during pregnancy, but it's not, I always like it to be so that the parents can find a way to do that, and then it's handed over.
Yeah.
So that's out of their thought then at that point. The other thing for family members or friends, people are always so excited to come and see the new baby, and the parents, but the new baby, and to just really remember that, again, this is a time of adapting and of um, falling in love and nurturing. And it's a closed circle in many ways. So to respect that and to not to come in ways that are supportive rather than just coming to visit, because it doesn't take much to wipe somebody out who's
Yeah.
in the early life of the family,
Mm.
and to just bring consciousness to what I'm doing if I'm coming to visit, those sorts of things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We had a comment here saying, so true. Just being able to shower in those first days is seriously such a luxury. It really is. And, like you were saying, Pamela, to be conscious about how, like, when you're visiting and being in those environments, it's easy for us because we're talking about this, consciousness and being that way. But also culturally, some people, they don't have boundaries, and they feel like it's their right.
Mhm.
I'm the grandparents, or I'm the, the auntie and the uncle, and it's my right to see the baby. So I think communicating expectations
Mhm.
with family members and, and friends around you, and it's okay to let them know that this is the time that you'd like to take with your family before you, invite friends and family to come into that circle. It's not you being rude. It's just really letting people know that this is the time that you need to go on this journey. And they should be respectful of that. If that's, if they love you and care about you, it's something that they definitely should be taking on board. So I know it's difficult, in our culture, it's like everybody in the neighborhood and they are coming over one by one and passing the baby over around and around. But it is, like Pamela was saying, this is a time where that connection, that love, that bond, it's so important to have that foundation, during that time, and really taking it, with the partners, with your partner, or whoever else is in that circle, whether it's other siblings that are welcoming
Mhm.
baby home, because that's also, a really big transition for them. Their shift in the family has changed, their position has changed, there's a new dynamic. So all of these factors have to be taken on board. When we talk about partners through this kind of experience or this journey, how do you think, Pamela, that they can be supportive? I don't know if you want to talk about like during the birth or after, it's up to you. But what do you see
Mhm.
their role is in this journey?
Well, it depends on the dynamics in the partnership,
Yeah.
but from again, thinking about the baby, even in pregnancy, there, everyone in the family can communicate with the child, and you can see it right after birth with if the co-parent has been, talking with the child, probably, and touching, and in all those ways, they're having their own really relationship. It's unique just to them. Same with the siblings. And then the baby's born and they look right away. They're kind of scanning to see those people.
Yeah.
And then they see and they hear, and that is, to me anyway, it seems like such um, a relief. Here I am and here you are.
Yeah.
I see you in a new way. Um, and in childbirth class, I'm learning through the couple, what they're in a process of learning and discovering together what someone might need, what how do I know that? How can I ask for that? Um, how can I say I don't want that?
Yeah.
All of those things are important as we walk towards the labor process. So that is an underlying, there will be a lot underlying maybe at that time, but to clear out as much as possible. And at births at home, it's not unusual at all for myself or us to see and to fully. It's not our process. It is the the mother and the baby and the family's process. So we will always ask if who's wanting to receive their child, to catch the baby, and the mother might, but many times it's the co-parent who is interested in that. And if things are, most of the time, that's fully possible. And it's such a beautiful thing for the whole family, but for the baby and the co-parent to be the first ones, to be fully involved
Yeah.
as much as they're wanting to be fully involved and to be welcomed and to be accepted, and to give them the freedom of space just as we are with the mother.
Mm.
And I've not, some people will say, I don't know that I can be at the birth. I'm afraid. I don't know what I'll do. I don't know what I'll say.
They might faint.
I might faint. I might, all these things. But I've not seen that happen yet. And the more that they can do, because they want to contribute and belong, they know this person better than anyone, and we are there to serve them.
Mm.
And so that, if people don't get in the way of others coming in and helping and in their process, then it can express in just profound ways.
Yeah, I'm sure you've experienced such amazing moments. Like even just reflecting on it or hearing you talk about it, it just brings such light and joy. And it really is such a miraculous time in everybody's lives that are involved in that moment. So I'm really appreciative of you sharing that with all of us. And if anyone has any questions, please feel free to pop them in the comments or the chat here. We're happy to take some from you all. I think just to end on a point, how can parents prepare themselves? I know we spoke about this, like, it's going from before, you've got the pregnancy and you're preparing mentally by taking away a lot of that, built up kind of generational trauma and things, letting go of that. And we spoke about during the birth, to be present in the moment and things like that. Is there anything else afterwards? So we're talking like postpartum. What can parents do to really help support their mental and emotional health?
Well, again, to have as much support as they can.
Yeah.
And if we don't have that in our community, if we're able to do this, there are postpartum doulas that can be of great support. And also, this is just another thing I just thought of, if we have birth before and we have children, to be mindful of others during that time, and to bring ourselves as naturally as it feels to offer. And we remember what we were needing, and
Yeah.
we can imagine what others might be needing, and so we can offer our hands as hopefully that was offered to us. So those are important, and it's really, there's to have, we are in a nesting time, but it can be very isolating sometimes, and to have resources available in case there's some other support needed as well is
Yeah.
important. And so again, if we, even in our own neighborhoods or through our own communities, whether it's church or school or whatever, to have awareness of others during that time. And for families, if there are siblings, to have them they wish to belong, they wish to contribute, they wish to do as much as they can.
Yeah.
I was thinking about this earlier, and I think we forget sometimes that they remember it wasn't very long ago for them that they were born. So they have a memory that we don't have as much. And siblings, I've seen, it's just so beautiful how if we give them the space to come and step in, that they will come in and they will just be available, and they can naturally do that. So that's the other preparation for parents, is to be thinking about how brother or sister can be there's worry sometimes around what will happen for the other one.
Yeah.
First of all, in ourselves deeply, it's a process of opening up to the other one, because then this child is now a new person in a way, a big brother or a big sister. And that's a journey as parents that we enter into. But those are the things that I'm thinking about, and to just have support, to have rest as much as you can, and to have food, and to be able to have that time for as long as you can at home, and to stay and be comforted, and to also reach out if you're needing some help. And sometimes when we're in that process ourselves, we're not able to see it. So again, as a community, can we check in and be with people to see what's
Such
happening?
amazing advice. Thank you so much, Pamela. We've really taken on some incredible wisdom and advice and knowledge that you've accumulated over these years that you've been doing this. And, something about getting the siblings involved and, giving them, making them feel like they belong to this new dynamic. That's such an important part of, this journey as well. So I think that was a great point that you mentioned. Community and support is a huge part of the journey. And of course, we've seen over the years how things like COVID and other, things that have limited that support network, or that, if you are struggling or if you need that, there are online platforms like we have here. Pamela is a part of our Guide and Grow Village. If you need support, if you're looking for that, you're welcome to join us. That's why we created this platform. That's why we created this space, to really support caregivers no matter where they are on their journey. So we sincerely thank you, Pam, for taking the time today to join us here on our platform on Guide and Grow. Please let the audience know where they can connect with you further. I know you've got some amazing work that you do as well. We do have your bio in our village, but also let us know, Pamela, where can people find you?
Well, they can certainly email me if they'd like. And that is, it's Pamela Green, T as in Tom,
Yep.
30 at gmail.com.
Beautiful. I'm just going to pop that into the comments for everybody.
Yeah.
There you are. All right, everyone, I've just popped Pamela's email in there if you did want to connect with her. We've got some of her amazing content on our village as well. So if you would like to subscribe, if you aren't a member of our village, please feel free to reach out to our team. We're happy to give you a free trial if that's something that you would like to come in and share the journey, with all of us there. There are experts to support you. There's chat, there's questions. and all of that. So once again, Pamela, thank you so much for joining us today. We've had a wonderful discussion on pregnancy, birth, and postpartum. It's always a pleasure, listening to you and talking about this wonderful topic. So again, thank you so much. And to everyone out there, we'll see you all soon for our next live event.
All right.
All right. Take care. Bye,
Bye-bye.
everyone. Bye.